Welcome to the Maritime Executives podcast series, In the Know. I'm Tony Munoz, Editor-in-Chief. Our Executive Corner podcast will provide conversations with top executives concerning events and issues that are shaping our industry today. We will also bring you up to speed with the latest news and editorials covered by the Maritime Executive. Good morning, Maritime Executives. Today we're very pleased to have Andrea Morgante, and he's president of Performance Services at Wärtsilä. And he informs me that he is just returned from Brazil. So I appreciate you taking the time after that long trip to sit with us and talk about what's going on in the industry. For those who don't know, Wärtsilä is a global pioneer of power, propulsion, and life cycle solutions for the maritime industry. Today, the company is helping the marine industry meet its decarbonization and sustainability agenda. Andre, please tell us about your education and your background and your career with the company.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you also for having me here. I'm excited to be part of this podcast. So I'm a mechanical engineer. I have a background as a mechanical engineer, as many in Wärtsilä. And I took an MBA while I was at Wärtsilä. For me, it was a dream that came true when I started working with the Wärtsilä engines, as you can imagine, as probably any mechanical engineer would love to. And then I started like that, and then of course I got to know vessels and I got more and more interested into that and passionate about it. I would say my love for the maritime industry really peaked when I headed the project management engineering of ship design in Wärtsilä, because then I had the possibility to work with owners and understand the business behind the ships, behind the decisions they take. And I took all of that then in my next steps in the career in Wärtsilä. So I had the strategy, and I had the luck of actually joining, taking the role of head of strategy for the marine business at the moment when we had digitalization and decarbonization coming into the picture, particularly decarbonization. And since last year, I have been leading the performance services business in marine, which is the business that focuses on life cycle agreements with customers. And I really had the opportunity to bring forward the strategy that I've been contributing and creating, which is based on decarbonization and service, and really bringing forward these partnerships with customers at the moment where they need it the most, like with the decarbonization challenge going forward right now.
Yeah, the industry is definitely under some scrutiny and has long been accused of creating a lot of environmental issues. And, we know for sure that the industry has responded, and decarbonization and the work that you're doing is really making the transition into the next generation of vessels and shipping and things of that nature. So it must be very exciting for you as an engineer to know that you're making these changes. And so tell us about the decarbonization and environmental compliance agenda. It's very costly. And what is Wärtsilä doing to help its clients? So what are some of the programs in play to bring down some of this costs, to help them navigate compliance? And because it's not just IMO compliance, you also have a regional compliance, you also have different compliances throughout the world. But there is a standard, and that's where you're working in with that a standard that is accepted across the board. Tell us a little bit more about that, please.
Yeah, in my mind, if I simplify the decarbonization challenge, I think that you have a combination of several factors. Technology is definitely one of them. Energy source is another one of them. Then operation of the asset. And of course, then you have the pressure of regulation coming in that impacts all of them. I think Wärtsilä, and that's why it's so exciting to be part of it, is working all the three I mentioned at the beginning. We are leading the technology charge with our products. We're investing heavily in developing our products, and we are doing so having in mind both the future generation of vessels and the existing vessels, because the decarbonization challenge needs to be addressed starting from the existing fleet.
Right.
The energy source is the other element, and that translates in what we call future fuels. And we see that the market will be dealing with a variety of fuels, and we are therefore working on technologies that allow vessels to operate on more than one fuel. It's certainly a big complication for customer today to determine which fuel they will be using, particularly if the asset operates internationally. The challenge is even greater. So having the certainty that you might be able to use another fuel compared to the one you planned gives helps the customer planning for the new build, but also for the existing fleet. But then on the operation side, that's also very important. I mean, these fuels will cost a lot of money. That's certain. Ultimately, all they derive mostly, if not entirely, from green electricity, which is very hard to come by, and therefore it's a multiple of that you have to keep in mind when looking at those prices. Therefore, efficiency has to be found everywhere in the technology and in the use of the technology. And as a company, we are using digital technology both to improve the use of the power generation, but also digital technology with our Voyage solutions to improve help the customer to improve the operations of the vessel as a whole.
So you're dealing with a lot of different fuels. Is there a fuel that you find to be most efficient for? I mean, would it be methanol, or would it be? I mean, what would I understand that methanol would be really, or ammonia would be really good choices for fuel and emissions. But we're not there yet. We have a long way to go. So we're working with hybrids, and we're doing that sort of work. What are you discovering with fuels? I mean, is there a preference at Wärtsilä for a fuel, or is there a fuel that you find to be most efficient?
I would say our decision as being strategically to support the customers rather than deciding for them.
Right.
The reality is that these fuels will become available in different parts of the world.
Sure.
Depending on the country, you might hear more push for ammonia or for methanol, for instance. I mean, there is an element of infrastructure that goes beyond the industry per se. And we need to provide technology that can actually take advantage of what is available in the country or in the corridor the customer might be operating into. We are obviously we are at different levels of maturity with the different solutions. Methanol, we have been operating for almost a decade now. I mean, we had the first engine several years ago, so those products are already being sold to the market. We are very advanced also in our progress with ammonia. It's and hydrogen. We are so far we've tested up to 25%, but there are ongoing studies to go to 100. And I would say these three cover basically the landscape of future fuels. And let's not forget that we have biofuels, and the reality will probably be blended fuels as well.
Right.
This is also why, I mean, we believe that the internal combustion engine is the best choice, and it's in the process of decarbonizing the industry. A customer needs to have a prime mover that is able to digest what's available on the market. And this availability will change throughout the years, according to our studies.
Right. I think that's probably the key component to all these different fuels is availability. Where can you get it? How can you run your operations and still make money at it? So the IMO provided the industry a great deal of time to get their house in order. The IMO said these are the standards that we would like to see the industry do, and the industry got together at meetings and said, yeah, this is the agenda, these are the fuels, this is the time frame that fits best for us. And there's some pretty aggressive deadlines and marks: 2030, 2040, 2050, 2070, etc. How do you feel that the transition is going? We are moving from these hybrids and these biofuels, moving into that, but there are many more standards that are available and will be available to operators. How is the industry moving forward in your summation?
The way I'm seeing this developing in the industry, I see that the industry is now very concerned about the decarbonization, has understood the challenge, is working with it. Certainly, the industry would appreciate more clarity and uniformity in the regulations to come, because particularly for the bigger companies that are operating globally, it is a puzzle that needs to be resolved. My perspective is that the industry is moving forward quite fast, considering the complexity of the challenge it is facing. Obviously, you can see different segments moving faster than others. My personal opinion is the easier for the segment it is to transfer the cost, the extra cost, for instance, connected to fuel, to the next in the chain, the faster things can move. If a customer, if an owner is not provided, is requested by the charter for a greener vessel, but the charter is not prepared to pay for it, it is difficult for things to change. And that's why regulations and also support incentives from governments can help. And where those are in place, you can see things moving faster. So I would say my personal opinion is that it's actually, one can be very proud of being part of this industry at this moment, because after maybe a few years where it was very difficult to understand exactly what needed to be done, nowadays, any meeting you go, this is the first topic on the agenda.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with you that the industry had embraced this change and has done very well. It's a costly endeavor. It's not cheap, and that's always been the complaint, is that it's hard to make money, and with all this compliance that we're going through. But I think that the industry, when it comes to environmental issues like decarbonization, I think they've done very good. Now, you very much are involved with the cruise line industry. What is their progress on all of this?
The cruise line industry is an industry that, in my experience, has always been looking for improvement on efficiency and or environmental matters. They are also under scrutiny. And it's an industry that is growing fast and therefore is often under scrutiny. And that's probably what is also prompting this industry to constantly look for options. There is a number of options right now in front of the industry, from improvements on the hydrodynamics of the vessel to improvements in the operations we support with our competencies. I would say this industry at all levels, from the hydrodynamics to the assisting captains in using the vessel, in operating the vessel more efficiently through our voyage technology. Obviously, we are present with our engines, and we bring forward to this industry always the most effective, most efficient engines from our portfolio. We are challenged by the industry actually to do that. On a fuel perspective, we see interest in methanol. I've not registered interest in ammonia, for instance, probably because of desire of first seeing it applied in other segments first. We are working. We have a unit that works on decarbonization services, and the unit has been very successful in many segments, helping such a capital-intensive business like the maritime business to make the right choices. And when it comes specifically to cruise, one of the areas has been to help out both in terms of, for instance, evaluating the impact of hybridization of existing vessels, but also conversions to future fuels. All of this, to me, is a reflection of an industry that wants to demonstrate to its customers that there is a willingness to decarbonize eventually to its full extent.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Now, that one element that I would add to this is also the role of shore power, and that also will impact positively the emissions. And again, there you can see that certain, for instance, the EU has made provisions to support vessels cruise vessels for shore power. In the Fit for 55. So again, regulation also supports. And probably the challenge is, as I said before, that you have different regulations depending on which part of the world you are.
Exactly. Yeah, I have taken cruises over the last, say, 20 years, and I've seen the difference in emissions when a vessel's sitting at dock. You can smell it. Now you can't smell it. Now it's white smoke and stuff of that nature. And I think they have a real big mandate because they move so many people, and it's such a big issue. Plus, they're moving through so many different countries as well. So their ability to comply to regional standards and local standards, it really must be a hard and arduous task to meet those compliance standards. And I think overall the industry has done a pretty remarkable job. And you've been involved with that and helping them. So kudos to you for that.
I would say that now speaking of what I'm dealing with on a daily basis, life cycle agreements, it is known we have an agreement with Carnival, for instance, for maintenance of their fleet. And it is something to be really proud of, what we have achieved by working together, by making it their challenge, our challenge, as a result in fuel savings, significant fuel savings, which obviously relate both of improvement from a monetary point of view, but also from an emission perspective. A lot can be achieved by doing proper maintenance. We have evidence that shows that you gain percentage points in efficiency by doing regular maintenance. And we have developed new solutions as well. It's also easier for us when we work directly with the customer in a partnership, and then that prompts also feeds our R&D, for instance.
Yeah, your expertise is in life cycle strategies. Tell us a little bit more how you approach the operator. Capitalization of fleets is not cheap. I mean, it costs a lot to build a vessel and build a vessel to today's standards. I watch vessels being built in the United States, in China, in Brazil, in different places throughout the world, and the standard for operations is much different. However, with that being said, tell me about what you're dealing with life cycle um, assistance in opinions that you give operators to get the most out of their capital.
The what you're asking about is actually one of the pillars of our strategy. Our desire is to be closer to the business of our customers, and deliver value to them, rather than deliver, for instance, just a product. We are a service-minded company, and if we come to life cycle, we cover, I would say, the entire spectrum of what can be done. In the most integrated examples, we share the outcome of the work we do. We share benefits. We have and potentially losses. Of course, we work hard to make sure that we only generate benefits for the customer, and then we take part of those as a reward. We take over risk and responsibility, and that in certain segments, for instance, this means that we suggest upgrades, and that can benefit, for instance, from an emission profile perspective, or can provide benefit from a fuel consumption profile.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really an evolution of the perspective, rather than doing maintenance. When the customer requires, so we plan the maintenance together with the customer, aligning also with the customer needs, with the schedule of the vessel, with the strategy of the customer in using the asset. We minimize the downtime. We provide services to evaluate what is the decarbonization future for that vessel.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, this is valid in a new build. You can have certain choices. If the vessel is already existing, then we work with the customer, evaluating what is the lifetime of the vessel that the customer expects to have, and evaluate what can be done, what makes sense also economically, financially.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, the upgrades we bring might actually give some more years to the vessel from a economical viability perspective. We are doing this in the cruise segment. We are doing this in the LNG carrier segment and the ferry segment. We provide lifecycle services, lifecycle agreements to container ships. We cover, I would say, the vast majority of the segments where the industry, where Wärtsilä is present, and each one has different drivers.
Mm-hmm. Well, before COVID, the cruise industry was building so many vessels. I mean, I don't know, there were 40, 50 vessels that were on the boards. They were going to be delivered, and certainly a number of them were being built in China and different parts of the world. But the best vessels, I think, overall for the cruise industry have always been European-built vessels. So they just understand the luxury, and we were sort of monitoring what was being built in China, because they're a different cruise client, and they have different desires of when they go, different needs when they go on a cruise. So it was really quite interesting to watch all of that transition being done. But overall, when you look at the cruise line industry today, they are expanding, and they are going global, and they are doing what are their, I mean, people just want to take a cruise. I know for me, it's a favorite vacation. Maybe not so much for my wife, but for me, I enjoy getting on a ship and roaming the hallways and talking to the officers and trying to get onto the bridge to see what's going on in there. And usually I managed to get myself an invite, and I always enjoy that part of it. But what are you seeing the major challenges for the cruise line industry? Is it environmental? Is it compliance with different regions? Is it making a cruise much more enjoyable for? I mean, when I look at a cruise, I look at it as fun. But when you look at a cruise, you look at it as a operational vessel that needs to function and meet standards around the world. Tell me a little bit more about that work.
Well, definitely. If I look at cruise vessel, I see one of the most advanced machines that you have in sailing today. And but the ultimate objective, obviously, is for the passengers to have fun. From a challenging perspective, I would, from the way I see it, certainly the environmental impact and the regulations connect with it are going to be one of the biggest challenges. It's not something new to the industry, and I think the industry is well prepared to accept the challenge. Technology is being made available, but it is probably the main factor. I mean, this industry has been able to survive COVID, and that is, I would say, one of the biggest achievements an industry can have to show that even without being able to operate at all, the
Yeah.
value you provide is so big that the moment you start operating again, your customers come back. I mean, it's such a pleasure to see the numbers. I mean, the industry is
Yeah.
growing again, and this to me shows the connection the industry has with their passengers, with their customers, is strong. So I wouldn't be concerned on that on losing that kind of link. Certainly, the challenges to me are more connected from the regulatory side, and of course, because the regulatory side is going to push for measures that will increase the operational cost. Future fuels cost more. There's been a big debate about the definition of certain parameters that were potentially damaging if the vessel is doing a lot of stops, and which is an element that is part of how a cruise set up. And I understand that now there are discussions with the regulators to explain why those formulas were damaging, actually, potentially damaging even modern vessels, the most
Mhm.
modern vessels. So there is a need of a dialogue, I would say, with the regulators. And I think that is the big challenge. And of course, the challenge is bigger if you think that regulators are different in different parts of the world. So for tonnage that is supposed to operate in different, move maybe across Atlantic at different times of the year, this might be complicated.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a challenging industry, but the ability of the cruise line industries to handle so many people efficiently is, really a remarkable business, and how they've done it and been able to. And certainly during COVID, they really had to meet some challenges. I mean, when your main source of income is told you can't get on the ship, that's a really tough time. And I remember Frank Del Rio went to New York and met with all the financiers to keep his company operating, and what it took, and the success story of when people started coming back on vessels. They just love cruising, and it's obvious by their numbers. And so I think that's a good commentary by you, and I appreciate that. So, do you have any final remarks about decarbonization and where the industry is and what we need to do to meet the modern challenges that we see before us in 2030 and 2040? I mean, we've already met the 2020 standards, and the industry has been remarkable at getting itself together and investing and meeting the global standards. So what is your feeling? What is your final thoughts about decarbonization and these environmental issues that we're contending with year by year, decade by decade?
If I have to make one statement, I would say that the most costly action today is inaction. I mean, decarbonization needs to be dealt with. Owners need to have a plan. It affects the economic viability of their vessels. And our objective is to support owners in this decision-making process, help them avoid to find themselves with stranded assets, and providing solutions that make sense depending on the age of the vessel. We obviously have new products for the new build coming, and products that are able to support multiple fuels, but we also are looking at what you can do with the vessels today. The important thing is to take a decision, to work on it.
Yes, I mean, the evolution of vessels and especially you folks on the front lines. And I consider what you do is a frontline business, helping operators as they build vessels, as they retrofit vessels, become more compliant, more efficient, and hence make more money. So yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate your time, especially considering that you just got back in from Brazil. You must be ready for the weekend, and please enjoy.
Thank you very much. Thank you
pleasure.
again for having me here today.
Yeah, you bet, and our pleasure. Well, thank you.